Good evening. Thank you very much for the introduction, very kind introduction. Again, let me thank Pima for inviting me to this forum. In fact, I must confess, I don't like speaking too much in public these days, but this Pima alumni are too well known to me. It was difficult for me to say no. So I accept the invitation. Now I am here today. In fact, other thing, one of the reasons I would not like talk too many things in public these days is, in fact, the fact that there are certain sensitivity in what I say, given the process that we are being, undertaking in terms of the turnaround strategy, where a lot of market sensitive information, a lot of information that we should share in public, commonly available to everyone. So as a result, there's this thing called radio silence. If you are not very familiar with the word, it's called, but I can share a lot of things that you probably already know. But I'll give my analysis of things, and obviously in terms of our turnaround strategies and also the role of international community. I think that's a very important topic, especially these days in our journey towards turning around the economy from the deepest economic crisis we have been experiencing these days. So we all know about it. I don't think it's not time for me to go back and do a post-mortem and talk about history. It's about the future. And as a result, because of that, let me just focus on in terms of turning around the economy. So our plan and what we are going to do, and also the role of our international partner. So in terms of turning around, I think as you all know, you all experienced these difficult economic conditions since perhaps from last year onwards, and we came to a point that we were not in a position to service our external debt at some point, although our willingness is quite strong to meet our debt service obligations, especially external debt service obligations, but our ability was no longer there. So the first turning around point was that we had to announce what we call debt standstill on 12th of April this year. Even before that, there were some initiatives taken by the government in a situation like when a country experiences a balance of payment crisis. It's natural that any country which is a member of the International Monetary Fund to seek for assistance in a balance of payment crisis from this institution. So the reason is that International Monetary Fund mandate is to help countries to overcome balance of payment crisis, and we as a member country, we have a right to ask for that help. So government had already made a request for assistance, especially financial assistance from the International Monetary Fund, but for whatever reasons, that request, even that time when I took over, was not making good progress, but the economy was basically going in a very difficult path. People are already facing difficulties in terms of basic essentials, shortages, power cuts, all these difficulties. I don't want to talk about it now. And then, although we made a request, from the International Monetary Fund for assistance, we had a little complication because based on their analysis, we as a country, as a government, based on IMF's what they call debt sustainability analysis, they found our debt is not sustainable. So if the IMF finds any member country's debt is not sustainable, then obviously IMF cannot lend to that country. This is an institutional rule. It's like if the country is not in a position to repay even the IMF lending, then IMF cannot lend to this even the member country. So that was the situation we were in. So then, in addition to the request that we have made, for that to be processed, we have to show that we have to bring first our debt into a more sustainable level. Despite several requests that government earlier asked for debt restructuring, that had not basically worked for whatever reasons. And then we announced that we are not in a position to meet our debt service payment. Please give us, not that we are going to default forever, please give us some more time for us to make good our obligations and give us some relief temporary, then we will get back to the situation going forward and recover the economy. We will be able to meet our obligations, external debt obligation. That was the position. So from that point, then while we announced the debt standstill, after the announcement, we worked very hard and started formal negotiation with the International Monetary Fund. And first crucial point in that journey is to reach what we call a staff level agreement. What does that mean? Staff level agreement means we have to show to the International Monetary Fund or to our creditors that, or we have come up with our own program of reforms and show what they call something like roadmap. Basically, coming up with the overall macroeconomic program, which will basically show that we can recover from the current macroeconomic crisis or imbalances that we were facing at that time. So that is the first point. Once we show that program to the International Monetary Fund, as an independent observer, and also this time they're going to help us with financial assistance. And if they agree with the program that we are presenting to them, they will say, okay, this is a good program. We also believe that this program will get the economy back on the stabilization path, and over a medium to long term, we'll be able to recover our economy and come back to the situation we were having in terms of growth, inflation, other macroeconomic imbalances that led to this crisis earlier. So that was the first step. For us to reach that step, we had to discuss it, we had to present our own program, and then we had to show it to this International Monetary Fund and get the endorsement and get them convinced and get them believe that this is the right program. So next step is, once we reach that agreement or once we get the endorsement that this is the right program, the next step is that with that endorsement, we have to reach out to our external creditors and ask for some relief in terms of debt service payments, so that we can bring our debt into a sustainable level or a medium to long term basis. That's the next step. So we have now come to one step, that we completed that, and we are starting the next process, that is approaching our creditors to restructure our especially external debt. That's why I mentioned, once we start that process, from that point onwards, because we are in the process of approaching and discussing with our creditors, both commercial and bilateral. This is a very kind of the process that we have to share all the information on comparable basis with all the creditors on equal and fair basis. As a result, there are certain information we can share with the public until we come to an agreement also with the creditors. So before I go to that point, that is where the international part can play a significant role in this journey. So let me just share with you some key elements of the program that we agreed with the IMF going forward in, say, what we call 4-year program extended fund facility, which means our engagement with the International Monetary Fund in terms of economic reforms and policies will span for about 4-year period, and which will entail a number of policy reforms, structural reforms, and certain number of measures that we will be implementing in next 4 years. On that basis, they will give us some financial assurance, and also more, what is more important than the amount of money that we are going to get, it is the endorsement that the International Monetary Fund gives to our program, so that everyone else, our creditors, investors, everyone else would accept this endorsement as a booster for investor, that they will have more confidence in investing in Sri Lanka. Right now we know that investor confidence is quite low. So in this program, let me just share the key elements. I just want to make sure that I don't miss anything, that I have this small note. Is first part, what we call the fiscal side, what we call government operations, which is the fiscal consolidation. What does that mean, fiscal consolidation? I think you will learn, community, you understand that is based on for us to bring our debt into more sustainable over a period of time. The key element in bringing debt into sustainable level is what they call primary surplus or deficit of the fiscal accounts, which is expenditure, revenue minus expenditure, excluding interest expenditure. So which is right now, this year, last year it was minus 6% of GDP. The largest primary deficit that we had for a long time. And this year is going to be minus 4% of GDP. So that has to be turned around to plus 2.3% by 2025. So it's like 6% adjustment in primary deficit or surplus towards from deficit surplus in what 3 years' time. This is in fact a very sharp adjustment and very ambitious fiscal adjustment. It's not that easy. But for us to come out of this crisis, and for us to stabilize the economy, as you all know, fiscal imbalance is a key imbalance that we have been having for long years in Sri Lanka's economic management, that we have to address that forever. This is why we have committed, the government, the Minister of Finance has committed to turn around the deficit of minus 4% this year to plus 2% by 2025, and then from there onwards maintain a surplus in a primary deficit for a possible future. So that's important. That's why that's important. That's the key variable in bringing down debt into a more sustainable level. And this is the contribution, internal contribution, our own government contribution in bringing down debt into more sustainable level. So we have to show a strong commitment from our side that we are committing to a strong adjustment program in terms of fiscal management, so that we can make a significant contribution in bringing down our debt into a more sustainable path. Without us making a strong contribution, we can ask, it's not fair for us to ask our creditors to make a contribution. This is the reason why we are making strong commitment to show that we are strongly committed to adjust our own, kind of imbalances into more favorable balances. So that on that basis, please also make your own contribution on equal basis. That is the key one. And then obviously related to that, there are a lot of other really similar public sector reform, which is the structural reforms in state-owned enterprises. I have heard a lot about that in terms of restructuring state-owned enterprises, introducing cost-effective pricing formulas for energy, that we have been having long periods of fixed prices, but with a lot of bleeding in state-owned enterprises, making huge losses out of taxpayers' money. As a result, we have come to a situation our fiscal position and also fiscal debt become uncertain. That also will have barriers. And most importantly, when you're going through this difficult, ambitious reforms program, it's obviously in a crisis situation, it's very painful. And on top of that, which means we have to increase taxes, we have to increase a lot of taxes. And also at the same time, government had to increase prices of petroleum, utilities, all this, and you see already that is happening, has already happened a major part. And that will affect, with very high inflation, this will affect mainly, first affected are basically poor and vulnerable, low-income people whose incomes are basically low or fixed, or their incomes are not increasing, and also with economic contraction, high prices, the real incomes are eroding. Those will be most affected. So other key element is to protect the poor and vulnerable. That is important part of the program. So that's we have to ensure the socially poor and vulnerable are protected out of this as a result of these difficult economic reforms we have to undergo in this difficult economic environment. Then second part, key element is the restore public sustainability. That is where we are now doing our part through our internal adjustment, and we expect the other part from our creditors. And the third important pillar is to restore price stability and rebuild external buffer. Why I would say that? Other key macroeconomic imbalance and also the adverse impact is very high inflation that we are experiencing now. I can talk about 1 hour why we are experiencing very high inflation now. There is no point of talking about the monetary expansion, money printing, all these things happened in the last couple of years. We have to restore price stability. The inflation is 60%, food inflation is 95%. If that goes beyond all those levels, and it goes runaway inflation, that we have seen a lot of other countries say in crisis situation like sometimes Zimbabwe, Argentina, all these countries, it goes beyond the control of the Central Monetary Authority, then it's going to be a disaster. No one can do any business if the inflation goes above 100%, which means every price of goods and services will be doubled within 12 months period. Which means you have to increase your wages, your cost of production will be high, and prices will be going up further, and that people won't be able to afford all these things. Currency will be depreciating, and on top of that, we, as a result of the certain measure that we had in the past, we lost our, by supply pricing, we lost our foreign exchange reserves. We came to a situation we didn't have any reserves, not only to meet external distress obligation, but also to meet, payment of foreign exchange for essential commodities like even for all these things. That's why you have seen this situation. So that we have to, first important part is to curtail the inflation. How do we curtail inflation? We have to raise interest rates. There's no other choice. Now, I hear a lot of things from businesses complaining that we can't do business, we have a lot of unemployment, we can't pay this interest. But if you just think about the poor and vulnerable and pensioners, those who are fixed income earners, who live out of their savings or interest income, out of their savings, with inflation. If they had 100 rupees income last year, 60% inflation means it's eroded by 60%. They have to live 40 rupees this year compared to 100 rupees that they had last year. Unless they increase their income, it's not possible in this kind of economic environment. So that's where people are asking why banks can't bring down interest rates. If you look at banks are basically intermediary function. They take on depositors and give loans to the borrowers. Can we afford for the depositors to pay for the borrowers? It's no longer they are not in a position to give that subsidy, although we give that subsidy during the COVID time, but it's no longer affordable now. So we have to live with this high interest rates environment until inflation comes down. And also the part is we have to build our foreign reserves so that we can manage the exchange rate, at least prevent that sharp fall of the currency, sharp depreciation we have seen from month of March. April, somehow we brought some sanity and control through various mechanisms. But for us to have a sustainable solution, we need to build up our foreign exchange positions. That is the next key element of this, the IMF program that we have presented a program, how we build up external reserves, how we bring down the inflation. That's another important third element. And fourth part is in this kind of situation, obviously banks, safeguard financial system stability. Both banks, non-banks and other financial sector players. The financial institutions play a major role in intermediating the financial services, that we don't want any further stress on financial sector, especially given already the economic contraction, that they are having a stress in terms of inability of some of the creditors pay their loans back, rising NPLs, or needs for recapitalization. So we need to protect the financial sector so that economy can function smoothly even under difficult circumstances. Then there are other parts, in order to talk about the reduce corruption and vulnerabilities. There are certain measures that we agree with the IMF to address that part. There are a lot of talk about the corruption and vulnerabilities, and also after we come into a certain situation, then we have to enhance our capacity to grow. That is, which means growth enhancing reforms. So that's basically, there are several other structural reforms to enhance our ability to grow and increase the capacity of the country to grow faster. That's basically the key elements of the IMF program. So then, once you read that, and IMF is now agreed, and now next steps is that we present this program to the IMF. Key, another important date is, as you all know, in public domain, this Friday, 23rd of this month, because we reached the agreement, the IMF, I think first of this month, and we did some background work with the advisors that we have appointed to help us in debt restructuring, the Lazard and Triple Chance, the financial legal advisors. With them we have worked a program, and the first step of debt recycling is now we are formally making the announcement and making a public presentation, inviting all the creditors, external creditors, and we present, this is our program, and this is what we expect. And we, together with the IMF, will also be helping us to make the first step of that process, the formally commencing the debt restructuring process. That is where the role of international community is very, very important. When you look at the international community who are the creditors of Sri Lanka for several years, obviously, we have a large chunk of commercial credit, but we are issued in terms of international sovereign bonds to commercial institutions globally. And some of basically are held by local banks as well. And then we have bilateral traditional lenders, India, Japan, China are the main ones. Plus there are a number of other countries. There are three groups here. One is the Paris Club. Japan is the largest crediting Paris Club. And there are a lot of other Western countries. There's one group. And there's non-Paris Club. Key creditors are India and China. So those are the two large partners, the creditors, on bilateral basis. And then large the sovereign bond holders on commercial basis. So for the IMF to be able to present their program to the executive board and start dispersing money, we have to obtain what they call financial assurances from our bilateral creditors, indicating that all those creditors collectively are willing to support Sri Lanka in the debt restructuring process going forward. So that assurance is the first next crucial step. And then we have to negotiate in good faith with commercial creditors that we are also seeking some relief from them with an intention for them to be able to recover the relief they are going to provide in the short term, in the medium term, in terms of recovering the economy after this program. So that is the next part. So this is next part. That's where the role of international community, the first important priority right now from international creditors, our friends and partners, for us to be able to get their assurance that they will be supporting us. The important statement that we are seeking from our bilateral creditors. That's the next step. That's what we are going to start from Friday onwards. So that's where China, India, all are personally I think all are friendly countries to Sri Lanka. They have been helping Sri Lanka at difficult times, all countries. And we want to do it in a comparable, open and transparent manner that everyone knows what others are offered, and an equal, comparable basis we will be asking similar relief from all the creditors on certain basis, and hopefully they will give us that assurance sooner the better. So that is the time frame. So that's the first part is that. Then the question a lot of people are asking how long it will take. It all depends on the hands of our international partners. That is where their role is very important at this point. The shorter the time they take for them to give us assurance, sooner we can go to the take-up program, the IMF, and start dispersing money from the monetary fund, and then with that as disbursement, and there will be a lot of other investors as well as the multilateral partners like ADB, World Bank will supplement, enhance their support from that point onwards. So then what we hope, that is a crucial, important turning around point for us to stabilize the economy. That's the point. So how long it will take, depending on the support we are going to get from the international partners. So the question is that from that point to that point, there's an interim period. How are you going to manage that situation? Already what we know, as you all know, we are not out of the wood yet. Still, we basically manage the situation in a very, very painful manner. We have basically, for us to be able to manage the economy from this point until that point, we had to go through a kind of a difficult period. Because that's why we have adjust ourselves internally. The economy is now contracting. We had to contract our imports for us to be able to manage with our export incomes. So we have to, one is contract economic activities, contract the imports, impose sort of bans on some what we think non-essential at this point, and go through this, and also manage to go through a very high interest rates and slow down economic activities. And while we are basically protecting most affected, poor and vulnerable, while others, everyone will have to share some of the pain during this process. For us to be able to manage the minimum pain, this is why a lot of difficult measures that we had to take in terms of import controls, in terms of high interest rates, contracting the economy and lowering economic activities, and allowing exposed to perform. Otherwise, we will be having a lot more difficult challenges if we don't get foreign exchange income. This is the other, that period. International partners also can help. Obviously, I should mention here, during difficult periods, India helped great, especially in the short to medium term facilities that India gave us. Almost $4 billion worth of to last several months. That was a lifeline. Even with difficulties, we were able to manage the situation. With that lifeline, I must appreciate and thank India for their support. But going forward, we can't rely and ask continuously from our partners, because we are expecting some more relief going forward. So we have to manage ourselves. That's why we took a decision. For us to be able to manage ourselves, we are contracting our economic activities, we are contracting our imports. And the difficulty is that I see a lot of requests coming from a lot of other sectors saying that, we don't have these raw materials, we don't have foreign exchange import, but still for any business to survive, basic things you need: petrol, diesel, oil, petroleum, pharmaceuticals, and the gas. All these are necessary, basic necessities for people to have at least basic lifestyle that we have been able to manage to a certain extent until now. For us to be able to continue, that we need that process going forward until we reach that assurance. This is why it's quite important that the situation we should be able to manage from this point until we get financial assurances. Once we get that, and once we get the approval from the IMF Executive Board for a 4-year Extension Fund facility, I am very confident that we can stabilize the economy and you all can basically be able to gradually get back to normal economic activities for all normal businesses, and can have a better and basically normal what we are seeing in the past. But still, that is not the end of the story. And I must also share this thought, where this time what is certainly is that we are going to the IMF with a deep economic crisis and both balance of payment and debt crisis. But we earlier had gone to the IMF 16 times, only with balance of payment crisis. People did not go through this kind of painful process in last 16 times, because we just before it comes to a worse situation, we went to the IMF, took some money, get out of this crisis, basically prevented country going through a crisis or difficulties, and stabilize to a certain extent. But that model doesn't work that way. Why we went 16 times is that we go to the IMF and do certain things, and we go back to the bad habits again and make it again for us to have to go to IMF for balance of payment issues, turning every time. That's why we were repeating clients of the IMF and seeking assistance, because we have been not doing something right. It's mainly because we have been basically living out of basically our incomes. Not only the government running huge fiscal deficits, is spending more than what we earn. As a country, in terms of foreign exchange, we have been spending a lot more than what we earn in terms of foreign exchange. That's what we call current account balances. So for us to be sustainable, even with this, we may be able to stabilize, but going forward, we have to change our mindset. We should be able to earn sufficient foreign exchange without relying on the debt situation. Because now this time we are getting some relief from creditors. We should correct ourselves so that we should be able to self-sustain going forward without relying on a lot more credit for us to grow faster. So probably creditors will give us some support this time with that expectation we will recover and correct ourselves. But there will be no second chance. If we don't correct ourselves and address our internal imbalances, fiscal, the balance of payment, current account, imports, exports, we'll go back next time. And then the example is countries like Argentina repeating, going back to tax restructuring. I don't think we don't want to go into that situation. That's why we have presented a very strong program that will ensure country will recover on a sustainable basis. There will be medium to long term strong reforms that will make us sustainably going forward. And creditors also will believe in that program and they will give us relief this time, expecting that there will be no more crisis going forward. It's all in our hands. That's why it's important for this crisis, to me, it's an opportunity for people to understand what went wrong in the past and get all the things right going forward. So this is the message I want to give. Let me stop here and I'm happy to answer any other question. Thank you.
AdaDerana YouTube නාලිකාව YouTube AdaDerana දැන්ම subscribe කරන්න. පාට කන්නාඩි වෙනුබට ඇස් කන්නාඩි